Pueblo latino, oye, ve. Si unimos nuestras voces, una sola se oirá. No es lo mismo que oigas unas aquí y la otra allá. Nuestro orgullo boricua más él resaltará, logrando así mil cosas en filo de los demás. Si todos como hermanos seguimos adelante, uniendo nuestras voces, resultaremos triunfantes. Y será nuestro legado a nuevas generaciones que cantarán orgullosos las boricanas canciones. Si caminamos juntitos todas las horas del día, mantendremos todo el año el entusiasmo y la valía. Y al juntarse nuestras voces en una sola y potente, daremos las herramientas para que nos represente. Daremos las herramientas para que nos represente. ¡Mira para allá!
En una sola voz, caminando de frente.
Para pedir los reclamos, mi hermanos, que necesita mi gente.
En una sola voz, caminando de frente.
Y que el orgullo boricua, Puerto Rico, siga vivito y latente.
En una sola voz, caminando de frente.
Porque las voces unidas las oye Castro presidente y su gente.
En una sola voz, caminando de frente.
No estamos pidiendo nada que usted no tenga en su mente.
En una sola voz, caminando de frente. En una sola voz, caminando de frente.
Esa es la herencia que tengo y allí vengo.
Welcome to the Latinas in Power Virtual Symposium Part 2. As I said, my name is Marilyn Alverio, and I'm the founder of Latinas in Power, as well as your host today. You know, we started running the Latinas in Power's virtual program on June 12th of this year, and we were just blown away at the number of people that joined us from not only over the United States, but from around the world. So for those of you who are sending these great comments to us, comments of encouragement, thank you so much. It is one of the things that helps us to keep going. A quick shout out to my niece, Becca Melly out of Vero Beach, because she sent me these gorgeous earrings that I am wearing today. So thank you, Becca, for that. You know, I started Latinas in Power over 17 years ago. And for 15 years of that, I was a one-woman show, creating this platform because I knew that there was a gap, there was a need for Latinas to connect and to share our strategies with each other. So for me, this has been one of those things that is my pay it forward. It's part of my passion to share what I have learned with other Latinas. And I'm getting that same vibe from everyone else that we need this movement, that we need this sense of connectivity. So I appreciate everyone who has supported our journey over all of these years. A couple of years ago, I was able to bring on an agency called Buzz Engine, and they're the ones that make this happen. They're the ones that make this look good. So I want to thank you, Buzz Engine, for supporting and for helping us. I'd also like to thank Eva Bermuzes, who's behind the scenes today, and also she wears many hats and she wears them well. So one of the hats is working behind the scenes today, as well as being a moderator for this afternoon. Last year, we became a 501c3. And thank you so much, Leslie. Thank you, Camila, for all of those wonderful, encouraging comments that are coming through. But we did become a 501c3, and in that, we installed a new board of directors. And this board of directors is really have stepped up to the plate and helping us to guide in our new mission to create a Latinas in Leadership Virtual Institute. So more to come on that, but I'd like to introduce you to them. On the right here is Noemi Santana, and she has been a mentor for many, many years for me. She's one of those women that taught me how to do the work that I am doing today. She was the national president of NACOPRO. Maybe some of you have met her or know her from that, but her name is Noemi Santana from the Bronx, and she is our board president. And then there's me, and then there's Carmen Sierra. I'm the one in green. Carmen Sierra is our board treasurer and has been a longtime supporter of Latinas in Power and believes in the idea that it is important for Latinas to have this sense of connectivity and to support each other. Then we see Maria Hernandez, who is a board member at large, and then there's our treasurer, Norma Villanueva. So I'd like to thank our board and to thank them for guiding us into the future of what Latinas in Power is all about. You know, Latinas in Power and our mission is twofold. One of them is that we want to share strategies for success with each other. We want to be able to help Latinas, enable Latinas, inspire and motivate Latinas to succeed, regardless if you are on a career track, or you're in business, or in your personal life. We want to be able to provide you with resources, with tools to succeed in your journey. And we're willing to do that by bringing other Latinas to the table that have experience, that are out there, that are breaking barriers, that are doing some great things, and that are achieving some great success. And so we want to celebrate those Latinas as well, and to, you know, I always think about the narrative of Latinas today. The Latina image is one of the topics we'll be talking about today, but I think about the narrative and about how important it is for us to write our own narrative and to document what we are doing. And so for me, when we spotlight the success of Latinas today, that goes down in history. So we bring Latinas from the national, from the local stage to the national stage to you. Many of you know them, many of you do not, but I promise you that when you hear them speak, you will remember them and you will support them. So I just wanted to share that with you in terms of, you know, what we believe in and what our mission is and what our journey is. We did start a new YouTube channel where we are going to house all of our videos, so that if you were not able to attend a session, you can go out to the YouTube channel and you could, you know, absolutely, you know, share that with others. What we're going to ask you to do today is, by the end of today's presentation, un favorcito. Because we just started the YouTube channel, we need 100 subscribers. Then that gives us our own URL that we could use and that we could share with everyone else. So if you can go out to the YouTube channel under Latinas in Power and subscribe, that will help us. I hope that we reach our goal today. Here is the rest of our social media platforms. Please go ahead and follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And this is one of the ways that you will be able to stay in touch with, what we are doing. And I believe that there's some good stuff in store for us here. So thank you, everyone, for doing that for us today. And so, I mentioned earlier that this is our second virtual symposium. We held our first virtual symposium on June the 12th. And I have to tell you, this has been made possible because of our sponsors. And I'd like to thank our sponsors for giving us that opportunity to share this. We know that everyone is going through difficult times. We know that because of the world that we are living in today, there's the pandemic, and there's the racial injustice. There's so many things happening that are being thrown our way. We wanted to give you this gift and provide this platform to you at no charge. And so that gift is made possible as a result of the sponsors that hopefully you will see on the screen shortly. We also plan on holding a live event on June the 3rd. There we go. There's our sponsors, especially Mass Mutual, Eversource, and Chet are presenting sponsors. We'd like to thank Voya, Webster, the Hartford, and AARP, Aetna, Connecticut Health Foundation, Latin Financial, Liberty Bank, and TJX, and of course, all of our marketing partners, Buzz Engine, Camelo, Telemundo, Connecticut, NBC, La Voz, Latin Heat, Latina Style, and Latin to Latin. Thank you so much for helping us bring this platform to everyone that is free of charge. And so we have our theme that we each year, and this year's theme is on building influential leaders and advocates. And in doing so, the first piece that we wanted to bring to you today is something that we do when we have our in-person program, and that is where we recognize a Latina champion, and that Latina champion is someone that has been paving the way for other Latinas that are demonstrating leadership skills and that are doing this because they have the passion and commitment, and they know the importance of us to be able to elevate the Latino community. And so with that, today, we'd like to recognize 3 women as our Latina champion. Now that we have grown nationally, and I believe, as I see in the chat, we have people from all over the world, from Brazil and from South America and from Mexico. And so hopefully we'll have an International Latina Champion Award by the next time we get together. But we have selected 3 Latina champions this year. And the first Latina champion's name is Tatiana Banhan. And she works in the insurance industry. She is a director of middle and large markets at the Hartford. The support of her sponsors, influence, her way of shaping her own career. So having a sponsor, having a champion is really important. And that has fueled her passion for Latino advancement in the workplace. Tatiana is on her 3rd year of service as a tri-chair of the Hispanic Leadership Network at the Hartford. One of the things that really stood out when I saw Tatiana being nominated for this is that, it was her focus on really driving, a greater representation of women of color into leadership roles. And that was the one thing that really stood out for us. I'd like to welcome Tatiana and to present her with the Latinas in Power Champion Award for 2020. Congratulations to Tatiana.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's really an honor, Marilyn. It's a tremendous honor to be recognized along with these amazing, really accomplished ladies. Thank you. A big thank you also to my Hartford Familia for nominating me and being my biggest supporters and partners. What I've been able to accomplish, I wouldn't be able to do without them. I feel also that by honoring me today, you're also honoring everyone who's doing their part, right, to grow and inspire others. to move that needle. And like you said, that driving greater representation for people of color and women in leadership in the organizations, that's a big thing that we all can partake in, and making an impact and paying it forward, right? So after all, the reason why we are all here and join Latinas in Power events each year is to take action and own our development and invest in personal growth and help each other. So I'm thrilled to be a part of this awesome group. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Can you show that, because I did you did receive it. Oh,
yes,
I'm so
I
glad.
did.
We had to, for those listening, we had to, drop ship the awards to the individuals because of COVID. We're not meeting. So I'm so happy that you got the award. Thank you so much, Tatiana.
Thank you.
And up next, we did things a little bit differently this year. We selected, since Latinas in Power originated in Connecticut, we always select a Connecticut-based Latina, but now that we are expanding, we have one from New England and then one from national. So for New England, representing Massachusetts, is Josie Valentin. And Josie Valentin is the state policy advisor for the United States Senator Ed Markey and a former Hollywood city councilwoman. She served as the Massachusetts State Director for Elizabeth Warren's 2020 presidential campaign, making Miss Valentin the first Latina lesbian to serve in that capacity in Bay State history. Before joining politics, her career was in mental health, substance abuse, and higher education. I'm going to put that down because I need to say something about Josie. And when I first saw her out here making a lot of noise, and that was in her ability to do community organizing, into mobilizing our community to take action. And so she just is relentless. And it seems like, I don't know if she sleeps, but it seems like she was always available every time that you asked her to help with something. She was there. I remember that we brought Mayor Carmen Julín to Hartford, and she's like, Marilyn, what can I do to help you? I'll drive it to the airport. I'll do whatever needs. And so we thank you for that kind of leadership that you have shown the rest of us, Josie, and we wish you the best in everything that you are currently engaged in. So welcome, Josie Valentin.
Thank you so much. So hello, everyone. Just such an amazing honor to receive this from Latinas in Power. A huge thank you, of course, to Marilyn Alverio for her work throughout all these 17 years. And as she just mentioned, 2 years ago, we had the privilege of meeting in person. I wish we were in person this year so we could have fun and dance salsa and do everything we could, but that wasn't the plan for this year. So first of all, I hope everyone is safe and healthy. But 2 years ago, we met because Mayor Carmen Julín Cruz was actually receiving this very same award in Hartford, and had the honor of being there. And there's a phrase that that Julín actually wrote in her dedication to her book that she signed for me, and I'm going to read it. And it says, "Always reclaim your power wherever you are." And I think it's such a short statement, but it's so powerful, because when we think about the words Latinas and power, there are many, many people out there that do not want to see those two words together. And it is up to all of us to remind people why this is what we need. There are over 300 people on this call right now on this Zoom. So my homework for all of you, because I will give you homework, is that you push yourself and you push others to make sure that these conversations are happening, to make sure that you look at every day how you are influencing others positively and negatively, and that we all remember the power we have, because as my former boss, Senator Elizabeth Warren, says, if you're not at the table, you may be on the menu. So stay strong, stay powerful, and let's go do this, because como decimos los boricuas y los latinos, sí se puede, y estamos aquí juntos y luchando hacia el futuro. Muchas gracias.
Josie, just real quickly, when you talk about Latinas in Power, it was intentional that I gave it that name 17 years ago. I thought about the idea of power, and I wanted to demystify the fact that power doesn't belong to anyone else, that we have that power. And my image was always somebody else had the power, but that's not true, that it is all relevant. So I wanted to talk about and power, not in power, because we're not in power yet. So when people say Latinas in power, I say, espérate, no, todavía no. Pero Palita, to get that, how do you get that power? What do you do when you get it, and how do you pass it on? So thanks for bringing that up, because
And I do have my award
very
too.
intentional.
Here it is.
Oh, there you go. Look at that.
Thank you for mailing it.
Thank you. I want
Stay
one.
safe, everyone.
Thank you, Josie.
Thank
And
you.
our last recipient is our national award from Los Angeles, Azucena Maldonado. Oh my God, this woman is a dynamo. Everything that she has accomplished in the last 10 years. You know, she called me a little over 10 years ago and said, Marilyn, how do you do it? How do you do Latinas in Power? How did you make that happen? And I shared it. I will share it with anyone that is interested in starting a platform such as Latinas in Power. But Azucena took that information and she created what was important to her and how she could share back what she has learned, and that is through golf. She created the Latina Golfers Association, LGA. Sounds like PGA? Nope. LGA. And Azucena is just one of those people that she's on a mission. She's definitely a trailblazer. She's transformed women's lives through golf. She founded this event and this platform in 2008, and she introduces girls and women to the sport of golf, because we all know that's where a lot of business takes place. I have to say, I started taking my golf lessons a few years ago, and I joined not only the Latina Golfers Association, I have joined them on some of their trips to exotic places, but also right here in Connecticut with the Latina Golfers team, where Azucena helped us start our Latina Golfers team of Connecticut. It's just a phenomenal sport, a sense of camaraderie and connection, and to see so many Latinas out there golfing today is just one of those things that really warms your heart. So thank you for your leadership, Azucena Maldonado, for paving the way, for showing sharing what you have learned through the sport of golf. Welcome, Azucena.
Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you, Latinas in Power. And sweetie, you have no idea how excited I am to receive this award. You know, I feel like Latina golfers and Latinas in Power have been side by side on our journey to empower women, because if you remember, Marilyn, you were at our very, very first event in 2008.
In Los Angeles. Yep,
in Los Angeles. We know that golf is a tool that women can use to gain access to power and influence. And it is our mission that has become a movement, as you said, to ensure that Latinas everywhere know that we belong on the golf course and that we can feel empowered to join the Golf Boys Club that provides us access to the C-suites. Latina Golfers has been proud to partner with you to present workshops at your conference throughout the years. And Marilyn, I used to, and I continue to be awestruck by your honorees. And I really did wonder if I would one day grace your stage. Hermana, we have come a long way, and I am grateful to you, and I am grateful to Latinas in Power for this amazing recognition. And thank you to my Latina Golfers team in Connecticut. Latina Golfers is changing the face of golf one Latina at a time. So join the movement.
You know what surprises me the most is when we're on the golf course and there's a lot of white men around, and they're kind of like looking at us, and we tenemos la pantalla, tenemos el vestuario very colorful, and they're like, what's going on over there? So, you know, a little intimidating, I think, but it is just such a fun sport. Thank you for introducing me to it. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Marilyn, thank you for everything you do to grow women, to empower women, and to partner with organizations like ours.
And I hope you join us for the for the rest of our program, because we have a wonderful speaker coming up right after you. I'm so excited about this woman. You know, when I was watching Jane the Virgin and watching the character of Alba Villanueva on Jane the Virgin. I said, "Esa es mi abuela." I mean, like, her whole persona was so relevant to who I was, and then to see it on screen is just absolutely amazing. And so, you know, when I reached out to Ivonne, thanks to Nancy de los Santos out of Los Angeles for making that connection, to Ivonne Cole, but I spoke to Ivonne about, you know, the Latina image in the United States. You know, we still have a long way to go as it relates to our image. And so sadly, the Latina image is still impacted by stereotypes and stereotypical portrayals, especially on television and film. And so I wanted to hear about her journey as a Latina who has seen it all. And she's going to tell you in her story what her background is, which is just so fascinating. But, you know, her recent success.
To get it, but you won't okay me to start the video.
In just a second. Yep, in just a second. Yeah. So, yep, so I think that Ivonne is here. We're gonna, you could see some of her award-winning actor roles here in Jane the Virgin that just ended their season this past year. So we'd like to welcome Ivonne Cole. There you are.
Hey,
welcome, Ivonne. We did it. We did it.
We did
Mira,
it.
Ivonne, how did you like that salsa music? I know you were dancing.
Oh, por favor. Salsa is my favorite kind of music, para empezar, aunque sea un poquito machista and misogynist.
I know.
But besides that, it's very patriotic in many, many instances. So I loved it. I loved it, especially the one that spoke about coming back to your land, which is what Puerto Ricans do. And I am here in my land.
Directamente de Puerto Rico,
yeah.
Ivonne Cole.
Así
Hit
mismo.
it, Ivonne.
Thank you. It is an honor to be here today. And thank you so much, Marilyn, for inviting me to do my first speech ever, that I've never given a speech in my life. And I kind of wrote it, but, you know, I hope you guys are moved or touched by whatever I have to say or not. So here it goes. Okay. So when I left Puerto Rico to go and study and train as an actress in the United States of America, I already had a successful career as an entertainer, as well as my own variety TV show on the air for 2 years called Una Chica Llamada Ivonne Cole. Translation, a girl called Ivonne Cole. In 1967, I became Miss Puerto Rico for the Miss Universe contest. That experience opened me up to be a performer, since the losers in the contest had to sing and perform a song. I had studied baby ballet with Walter Mercado from ages 5 to 7, and took other dance classes, but I never thought of that as a career, since I was also a psychology student at that time in the University of Puerto Rico. But that contest held back then in Miami introduced me to the perception they had and have in the United States of Latinos, Latinas, Latinx. As contestants, we had hostesses, well-to-do ladies who volunteered to do the work of accompanying every 2 contestants everywhere we went. The other contestant I shared this hostess with was Miss USA Sylvia Hitchcock, who, by the way, won the contest. So, as we're driving down the road, the hostess says to me, "Dear, you see that building there? That is a television station." She spelled it out for me as if I already didn't speak her language, albeit with a heavy accent, but I spoke her language, whereas she had no clue about mine. And it treated me as if I was the ignorant one. Also about the content of the information she was describing, as if I came from a jungle. It was a weird moment for me, for I didn't know or understand what she was trying to convey to me. I didn't recognize racism at that time, at least directed at me. I guess that was my first personal brush with racism and how we are perceived by some in the United States of America. Now fast forward to 1975. when at the behest of my mentor, my then mentor, I moved to Los Angeles, California to study acting in the Academy of Stage and Cinema Arts. I was motivated by, after I saw Pacino doing the kissing scene in The Godfather Part 2, I was fortunate enough that Coppola gave me the chance to be the singer in the Cuban sequences, because that's what I was doing in Puerto Rico, singing Cuban songs from the 50s. So it was like incredible. It was for me, God sent. So anyway, I moved to Los Angeles because I was inspired and I wanted to not be a singer dancer anymore here. I wanted to study acting and find out what it was. So I moved to Los Angeles to study acting at the Academy of Stage and Cinema Arts with a great teacher, David Alexander. David had also been a very successful television director of major shows, and he also had developed great and exciting acting techniques. In the class, I met then actor, now a successful and accomplished writer, Eduardo Machado. And we wanted to stretch our instruments as actors. So we decided to do a scene from Eugene O'Neill's The Marriage Proposal. We had great fun doing it, and the acting class got the gist of our comedies. We nailed it. But David says to us, "Why are you doing O'Neill? You're Hispanics. You should be doing Lorca. That's more near you. Or maybe you can also do Chekhov, since the Russians are passionate and exaggerated in their emotions like you guys, Hispanics." WTF, okay? I didn't know any better. So I did not understand why I could not do a play by Eugene O'Neill. Well, as life has it, I ended up doing O'Neill, the hairy ape, as an upscale New York socialite part at the La Jolla Playhouse in the 1990s. Poetic justice. Thank you. Well, back to David. He ended up recommending me to work with the Bilingual Foundation of the Arts. I did 3 plays with them, and one of them was a Lorca play. So I left Los Angeles for New York City, went on to train with Lee Strasberg, became a working observer at the Actors Studio, meaning that I cleaned the bathroom, the toilets, in exchange for me to be able, without being a member, to observe the sessions moderated by Strasberg, Pacino, Elia Kazan, Arthur Penn, Ellen Burstyn, etc. Only once was I called a spick, but it was like a joke by another actor. But it was a great opportunity for my education to be there. Also, I also trained at HB Studios with Hal Holden. As I developed as an actress in New York City, I learned soon enough that I could only audition for Hispanic parts, unless I would not reveal my ethnicity, since I was light-skinned and I could pass. I was actually told that by an agent in New York City. But in the meantime, the white Anglo actresses were playing Latinas. Still, hello, West Side Story, still the 1950s. And this was in the 80s in New York. I went to an audition for The House of Spirits by Isabel Allende. I told the casting director I wanted to be considered for the part of the sister of the lead, a great part. And I was informed that only the lower class people in the story would have an accent. I remember telling her that when we have learned a second language, we undoubtedly have an accent. Well, the reality was that all these Latino and Latina characters were already cast with white actors like Jeremy Irons, incredible actors, but you know, Meryl Streep playing a Latina, and Glenn Close playing the part that I wanted to be considered for. Meanwhile, the Latino talent they used in were Antonio Banderas as the revolutionary, Miriam Colon, who was one of the most incredible actresses that ever existed in the media, in Hollywood, in New York City. She created Puerto Rican Traveling Theater. They had her as the maid. The maid in Isabel Allende's story is a fantastic character that is like a magical character. Well, in here they put her in a uniform. She looked like she was working in Beverly Hills as a maid. And Maria Conchita Alonso played the prostitute. That was one of my first encounters with the limitations the system had created around people like me. a Latina actress. I never hear them saying, the Anglo-white actress Meryl Streep, pero bueno. Classifying or pegging me in that corner brought limitations to how I was hired, except in theater, where I've played from Shakespeare to Shaw to O'Neill to Tennessee Williams to Greek classics to Bertolt Brecht, to extraordinary Latino writers like Genius Grant recipient Luis Alfaro, to Pulitzer Award winner Nilo Cruz, to the brilliance of Eduardo Machado, to Oscar-nominated Jose Rivera, who wrote a play with me in mind, Adoration of the Old Woman, and I plan to, with my production company here in Puerto Rico, make the film of that play. But in the TV world or film is a different route for us. Although for young Latina actresses, they do write parts like, you know, policewoman, detectives, firefighters, the rebellious Latina, the hot-tempered Latina. But for older Latina actors, you are locked in playing the only parts they write for us. The mother, the maid, the illegal immigrant, and of course, the abuela. I've been fortunate enough that I've partaken in 3 shows as the abuela. Switched at birth, I played Adriana Vasquez. And Adriana spoke in sign language because her granddaughter was deaf. So they presented a real progressive Latina that worked outside of her house. We never knew what she worked in, but she worked outside and she spoke in sign language. So progressive abuela. The second progressive abuela that I did was Glee, albeit a homophobic abuela, opposite Naya Rivera. May she rest in peace. That was one of, but Alma Lopez in Glee, elegant woman, in spite of the fact she's in her kitchen giving food to her granddaughter and being so stoic in her beliefs that are so wrong for us nowadays. But you know, and the third abuela that I've been so lucky to play has been Alba Gloriana Villanueva in Jane the Virgin. Jenny Snyder Ehrman, an incredible writer, created that series in English. It comes from the Venezuelan show Juana la Virgen. And she created a different reality for the show. She created an American reality, the illegal immigrant and her family. I told them at the beginning that I would not use aprons or cook, especially after I saw Gina Rodriguez doing an incredible scene the first day of shoot. I said, I'm not bringing a sandwich. I'm not bringing food. I am an actor. And I cannot walk in and pretend that she's not crying. No, I have to address that. And they, Jenny and the powers that be, honored me. You never see Alba cooking. You never see her with an apron. I worked out of my house as the character. I told them that my mother was taken care of by illegal immigrants here in Puerto Rico until she died. And so that's the profession they gave Alba at the beginning, taking care of older, elderly people. And then she ended up working on, you know, the hotel, in the gift shop where she fell in love. Anyway, so I've been extremely lucky that I played those 3 abuelas. But once the system sees you as an abuela, the problem is that the producers will not hire you for anything else because they feel that because you're so believable as what you're doing, that nobody will believe that you will be Sonia Sotomayor as a justice. And that's the way it is. So nothing wrong with playing those parts, except that in our business, it limits you being cast in professional upscale parts because sometimes they claim you would not be believable in those parts because people look at you and they think, oh, the abuela. They don't think, oh, this actor is playing this incredible part. Look at that. No, they think that you will not do that as audience. Anyway. We are locked down in parts that are mostly supportive, mostly never written to be award-winning performances. You just saw the Emmys, we're not even there. And we have a lot of incredible people on the air right now. Anyway, so it's hard for us to compete because the parts are never written. And when they're written, They're even not nominated. And reach the heights of those plateaus the white and black actresses reach when given the opportunities that we Latinas don't mostly have. I moved to Hollywood in 1990 to try my first television pilot season. I was fortunate enough to book my first pilot as a principal character in ABC's Bells of Bleecker Street, written by Eve Branstein and Saturday Night Live's Ann Beeds. I played the Puerto Rican mother of three who was married to the super of the building and was best friends with the white divorced woman in the building whose daughter was best friend to my daughter. Well, ABC did not greenlight it because at the time they felt that it would not sell, with the Hispanic story being the strong one. After that, I went on to play a pregnant, barefoot Puerto Rican woman, crazy woman, ghetto woman. And then because I was the new face in town, and I am kind of ambiguous in casting because you can't place me because of my physicality, whatever. I played doctors, psychologists, sociologists, counselors, judges, psychiatrists. This was when I got to Hollywood in my 40s, and everybody said that I was too old, but I looked younger, so I was fortunate to play those parts. After that, I became mother, and then abuela. My craft, also because of my light skin. And all this time I have refused to play maids because it would peg me as an actress in that part forever. And I would not have the career that I have. Nothing wrong with playing a maid if they would make our maid characters as principals with a human story behind the person in that job. Give me a compelling human story like in the PBS show, I'll Fly Away with Regina Taylor and Sam Waterston, and then we're talking. It was about a maid in the 50s working for this widow man and his son. And then she would walk home to her father and her son. And it was the contrast of her life in her work and her personal life. Brilliant writing, and Regina was incredible. I believe the reason we're not depicted in characters that are professionals in charge of their businesses and their lives with all the qualities is because mainstream society right now does not easily perceive us in those positions of power, and producers, white producers. So therefore we're limited in being represented in the mirrors of life, TV, film, and theater, through art, as people who are contributors and part of the mainstream society, bring in our contributions as well as our human flaws. Our writers will try to tell our stories and get many times the system goes only with the stereotypes they understand. It's a business, you know, so whatever sells. I believe we need to see more Latinas like you who are in tune right now with us, who are educated and in positions of power, being represented, Writers and producers in my industry to have to see that, you, in the society they move in, so that they can write about something that the general audience is also aware of. Unfortunately, our general audiences are more aware of stories of illegal immigrants, farmers' hands, gangs, etc., than our accomplishments, because also the news and the press inform about it most of the time. These are challenging times, but we come from a race of people who have already overcome hardships and challenges with some of our elders or parents or family crossing the desert by foot with their hopes for a better life for their children in the economic affluence of the United States. We are, or descend from, Guatemala, Nicaraguan, Peruvian, Chilean, Argentinian, cubanos, colombianos, puertorriqueños, panameños, hondureños, dominicanos, uruguayos, mexicanos, costarricenses, y por ahí sigo, brasileros. That which defines us, our fingerprints, culturally is what keeps us separated in a country that wants to define us all as Mexicans in this current administration. So we should define ourselves as we do now, Latinos, Latinas, Latinx. We're one race of people here, there in the United States. One definition, to hold our unity so we can get the power as one solid, unified force of great people, proving and showing our contributions to the country And yes, with friends and family, celebrate our food and music, but not let that be the only thing that defines us, okay? I have moved back to Puerto Rico, as I always foresaw I would. It's a Puerto Rican thing that we leave the island, go to the States, make a career, and then we come back to our homeland. But I am faced with other challenges in the very traditional, conservative, very Christian, paternalistic, misogynistic society. But I will hold on to the power I learned to have as a Latina in the United States of America. And I will move forward to hopefully tell the stories of our lives and the joys and sorrows in the island, but also of our lives and struggles and contributions in the United States of America. I'm still actively auditioning. I'm mostly auditioning for, many times it's mostly brujas, witches, abuela, abuela, abuela. They don't, so mostly for the voiceover work is what I've been doing due to the pandemic. And I see that in many of those characters that I auditioned, we're still objectified. I auditioned for a part that had the name of a fruit. So anyway, she was a singer. I was a singer. Represented as simple-minded people that lack education and sophistication. We're still there, yeah. So there's still a lot of work to do. I was born in Fajardo, Puerto Rico, a small coastal town in the eastern part of the island. Mi mamá, perdón, se llamaba Ana Rosa Martínez Vega. Y mi papá, Pelayo Col Cabrera. My father left my mother when she was pregnant with my sister, and I was 2 years of age. He was always an absent parent in my life, but my mother was an extraordinary woman. She renamed herself Rosita Mendoza because she said it was a more commercial name for her business. She was a hairstylist. And this woman, who did not have a pair of shoes until she was 9 years of age, went on to self-educate, hone on her craft and talents, and became the most prominent international multi-award-winning hairstylist, master teacher in her craft, in hair color, hair cutting, and styling. She worked very hard in her craft, but also to give us the best education, which prepared me to confront life with my intelligence, the knowledge of my craft and discipline. That's what carried me through and made me strong to pursue the vision I had of myself and my work, which was to become a working actor, and to give contributions to my art, to my God, and to my beautiful island of Puerto Rico. I hope soon enough that I see us represented in the next film about Mars. You know why? Because a Latina astronaut in NASA has created the diet for Mars. She's a Boricua, okay? There's gonna be rice and beans in Mars. She already created that too. And another young student scientist from the UPR, from the University of Puerto Rico, has created the conversion of urine into energy for that Mars excursion. I hope that they write our parts into that movie and that they're relevant and that 2 Latinas become big stars with those parts. So there we are. We'll just have to keep on walking. Like Antonio Machado said in his poem, caminante, no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. So we'll just keep on walking and making those roadways for others to travel on, empowering ourselves as we keep on walking. Thank you. May God bless you all. Y que viva todas las latinas y los latinos en los Estados Unidos, así mismo y en el mundo entero. Muchas gracias por esta oportunidad. Thank you. That was it.
Okay. All right, let me bring myself back. Oh my gosh, Ivonne, you should see the comments coming in, the questions coming. There's so many, we're not going to be able to get to them.
Wow.
But what I'm reading is the love for not what you just said, but just what came from your heart, your experience, your journey, how you have paved the way for so many of us, you know, and those challenges and those barriers that you face are still with us today. And you brought that to life for us. I mean, it's, when I read about, you know, Latinas, especially on film and on television, and the movement that is starting to happen, you know, behind that, I'm very excited. In fact, when I was speaking to one of our afternoon speakers, Lisa Vidal, you know, and she said, you know, they have created a group to be able to have a voice and to speak up. But as one of our comments that came up, came through on the chat, it says, it seems that we're losing ground, not necessarily gaining ground. How could that be happening? How, I mean, with so much success that we have had with, you know, important roles out there,
Well, you know, in my experience, ever since I got to Hollywood, it was always the year of the Latino, always. And it never was, because I never saw anything progressing, anything coming out of the stereotypes, anything. So every other years, you know, they, like Gloria Calderon-Kellett, who is an incredible writer, she's writing one day at a time. Hello, con Mike Royce, you know, and these are people who are creating amazing scripts. She's including LGBT stories into her. Tanya Saracho con Vidal. I mean, perdón, pero there's many, but look at that. Netflix did away with her series, and Vidal was away. So what's going on? We're writing. The writers are out there. They're gaining the experiences. They're starting, like Gloria, for many years in How I Met Your Mother, in other shows, until she got her break, you know. And she's still empowering other women. Like, she gives classes and workshops all the time to Latinas who want to be writers. So I don't know what to tell you. Every year is the year of the Latino, pero ninguno es el year of the Latino. Embuste, mentira. Como dicen, like they say in my country, embuste, mentira, no hacen nada. So, you know, yeah, pero at the same time, you know, our writers, our theater writers are incredible people. I mean, Pulitzer award-winning writers. So they are writing the stories that are elevated in the theater world. They have not transcended into film yet, because that's another 25 cents. Pero at least in the theater, albeit que en el teatro, you know, not everybody can come into the theater to see the play.
Right.
That's the thing.
Yeah. You know, we've run out of time and there's so many questions. So I promise people what we'll do, Alba.
Oh, and everybody, let me tell you, I appreciate that you guys say that I remind you of your abuela. In actuality, my abuelas were never present in my life. So the abuela that I created is based in my mother, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Y yo no soy abuela ni soy mamá. So I'm just an actor. I'm just an actor who plays the abuelas and who plays mothers, but I've never been married. I don't have children. So thank you so much for accepting my performance. It's so real that you think that I'm like your abuela, that I remind you of somebody. That's my mission as an actor, right?
You're such a lovely, lovely human being that you are, you know. Like I said, we ran out of time, but I think that if you agree, Yvonne, that maybe we can, I'll throw you the questions and maybe we can put them on our Facebook page and answer some of these questions. There's one more if we can do real briefly, because I'm also curious about this question, and then we'll move on. From Gabriela Porcaro, I don't know where she's from, but she said, whose idea was it to have Alba only speak Spanish on Jane the Virgin? Whose idea was that?
Jenny Snyder-Ehrman, the creator of the show. She's
that really worked.
She is the one. Because I told them, I said, when I did the audition, I said, this is in Spanish and English, what's up? And they said, do it in Spanish. And I said, what kind of an accent? They said, Venezuela. I said, oh, I'm Caribbean, I can do that. Okay. Pero entonces, when I spoke to her, when I was accepted for the whole thing, I was cast, I said, so am I going to be speaking Spanish only? And she said, yes, you are. And I said, but I've trained so hard and I paid so much money for my speech classes in English. Are you kidding me? she's like, I'm sorry, but this is the character, that's the story of the character. And so I had to really, it was hard for me because I had trained so hard to be in the North American market, and all of a sudden to be in the North American market speaking Spanish only. But it was enlightening. It filled me with life and with love, especially for all the immigrant women that I got to meet and their stories that I was not aware of, because we're Puerto Rican. I'm Puerto Rican and I'm a North American citizen. So I had no clue of those stories, and it built my character as a person, that they wow. speak Spanish only. Así que bueno, ahí vamos.
Well, Ivonne, I hope you join us for the rest of the program. As you know, your TV daughters are going to be on a little bit later on, Andrea Navedo and Lisa Vidal. And when I was on with them a couple of days ago, they go, yeah, we've been her daughter on television. So
Marilyn, you wanted to see what I was doing in Puerto Rico before. This is a picture of what I was doing in Puerto Rico before.
Oh my gosh. Were you
an actress?
Oh, that's you?
That's me, baby.
Wow, baby, you look good. Baby, oh my gosh. So I'm going to close with this wonderful comment from, I don't know who it's from. I can't see her name, but Ana Clara. I think she's from Brazil. Ivonne es una inspiración para mí. Tengo 23 años, pero creo que tenemos que usar nuestras voces desde temprano, porque el cambio comienza en pequeños sitios. So with that, I would like to close that you were influencing our young people. She's 23 years old and writing that comment to us.
That's so great. When I moved to this country, the United States, I was 26 when I started at that search. So I love it. Thank you so much for including me in your perception of your young world. Makes me feel younger.
Thank you, Ivonne. So we so hopefully you'll stay with us.
Sí, entonces ¿cómo hago? Me pongo en mute para no
interrumpir. Yeah, you can just turn your camera off and you could watch. You can
I can watch.
And yeah, you can just put stop video and mute, and you will be there and you'll hear everything.
You got it. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Marilyn, and to everybody that is watching and listening.
I can't wait till we can go back to Puerto Rico soon. I hope,
God bless everybody. God bless all of you. Thank you so much for your attention. Gracias y por el amor. Gracias. Okay.
So for our next segment, something a little bit more serious. As many of you know, this is an election year, a presidential election year, and it's a pivotal year. It's probably the most important election that any of us would have ever imagined, because it will determine the future of our beautiful country, and hopefully we move towards unity and not divisiveness. But the Latino vote, the power of the Latino vote in 2020 is critical. In a recent study, Latinas were also found to be dissatisfied with the way things are going. And in the past, young people have not voted. The Generation Z and millennials have not voted, but in 2018, we saw a huge uptick in that it increased by 50%. So we know that young Latinos are paying attention. We know that Latinas play a significant role in our communities as the matriarch, as the organizers. And so it is really important that each and every one of us that is on this Zoom call today know that they could do something. They could make a difference. And our next panel, The Power of the Latino Vote, was brought to you as a result of the importance of this topic. I would like to bring on this wonderful panel today that is going to be moderated by Eva Bermudez, and hopefully at the end of this conversation, you will see that you can do something, that even no matter where you live, that you can take part in making sure that we move forward as a country in a way that brings us together and that brings equality to the surface, so that each and every one of us can have the kind of opportunity that we all deserve. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to Eva Bermudez, who will then introduce our panel. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone, nationwide and internationally. What an amazing discussion. And I was inspired by Ivonne Cole, her struggle, the powerful words of coming into her own terms of as being an actor. It's wonderful seeing such powerful Latinas making it in Hollywood. And here we have Latinas making it in politics. So thank you for asking me to moderate. I'm going to start off with just giving a little bit of information of myself and then doing introductions with the rest of the team here, our panelists. So my name's Ava Bermudez Zimmerman. I'm a union organizer with SEIU, CSCA. Service Employees International Union is an international union that has over 65,000 members here in the state of Connecticut and over 5 million nationwide. We represent workers who are daycare providers, bus drivers, municipal state employees. And when I started my path as organizing, ironically enough, I started not in organizing at all. I started with the mindset that I was going to be in medicine and I was going to be a neurologist. And that brought me to doing some work in Brazil. And my work in Brazil showed me that there are different paths of making good. There are different ways of helping people. And organizing was that way that I knew I could actually make a difference. Of course, the medical profession is very necessary and doctors are right now saving lives during the pandemic. But the more I started seeing the struggle and just trying to find my way in politics, I realized that the struggles that I saw in Brazil, working in favelas, giving medical equipment and helping young children were not too far from the reality that I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut in the 80s and 90s, where the gang violence and crime was at its highest peak in the nation. So from there, I came back home. I started working as an organizer in political campaigns. I had the privilege of working for Congressman Rangel in Washington, DC. And that brought me to not just being behind the scenes in Obama's reelection campaign in Nevada and working on some other major political campaigns, electing leaders, but then realizing that we have the opportunity to be leaders ourselves. We don't always have to just be behind the scenes, that we have the ability to have a voice. So recently, 2 years ago, I guess my claim to fame here in New England, I was the first Latina who ran for lieutenant governor in the state of Connecticut. And I got 40%, I got very close, I did not win, but through that opportunity of running and representing not only Latinas and people of color, I had the opportunity of having conversations here across the state where they were asking for basic needs, education, medical needs, kids who were asthmatic and wanted better quality for their environment, better air to breathe. And I had the opportunity to also come across other Latinas just like me who were starting their political careers and didn't even have a clue where they can commence. And I ask all of you watching today that you take note of our panelists. They're all amazing women. And take some time out and just do some soul searching this election. What is your place in this election? You don't have to be the next person running, but you do have to go out there and vote. Because if you're not participating, then you're not adding to the solution. We're just standing by and letting other people make decisions for us. And that doesn't make any sense. So let's start with our wonderful panelists here. Clarissa, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story? Just a reminder, Clarissa, to unmute yourself. You're not unmuted.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Eva. And thank you to Marilyn for putting together this amazing event. Like so many I've seen in the comments, I was very inspired and tickled by Ivonne. So that's always something very much needed in one's day, is inspiration and humor. So I know that there's a lot of folks who have a plan for what they're gonna do and the path they're gonna follow. And I so admire those folks because that is just not me at all. So in my case, it's probably a combination of luck and fate and serendipity. But You know, my mother, what brought her to the United States, as so many immigrants yesterday, today, and tomorrow, is the ideal that America represents, an ideal that so many of us in our different capacities work to make a reality every day, because it is an aspiration. And so my first job, my mom was a seamstress, and my first job in the United States was in the garment district in LA. And I say fate and serendipity because my first actual job was as an organizer. And then eventually with the Ladies Garment Workers Union, who of course sought to organize seamstresses and other folks working in the garment district. So in some ways it was accidental, but I think whether it was while I was undocumented or when I had the opportunity to eventually become a citizen and everything in between, one thing that was very clear to me as we navigated going through school, you know, when I started high school, is that there's so much luck involved on whether you are going to have a real shot at making it or not. My family really cared about education and wanting us to get ahead because neither my mom or dad had been able to do that. But they also put their trust in our systems, right? And as we know, sometimes that doesn't pan out. So I am incredibly conscious about the kindness of strangers who helped along the way point me in the right direction, as well as my family, and very mindful also that the success I've been able to have has a great deal with luck, and that all of us who, you know, as we're increasing the number of Latinos who are able to pursue, if that's what they desire, a college education or a career in acting or in politics or in business or in whatever they may want, that we should not be exceptions. That should be the rule for our community. And that's what moves me. I truly believe that America's greatest superpower is the diversity of her people. And Latinos actually are a great example of the out of many one that is an inspiring theme of our nation. We can be of any race, we can be of whatever religious orientation, sexual orientation, political affiliation. So we are a perfect embodiment of that diversity. And I believe that working in unison with our fellow Americans and sister communities, we can make sure that our beliefs in unity and bringing people together are not only expressed in the streets through demonstrations, in the halls of Congress and state houses and local councils, but also in the voting booth. So that's where I'm so excited to be part of the panel today and to be able to talk about tools and ways in which we can all be part of making sure that that Latina voice grows in the voting booth too.
Thank you, Clarissa. Amazing. Good to hear that you're a fellow organizer. Not that many out there, so we need more. Next up, we have Councilwoman Vidal.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with all of you. We have an amazing panel, and I really look forward to talking more and digging deeper on this issue, this importance of voting, among other things. I wanted to share with you all a little bit about me. So I am on the Hartford Court of Common Council. This is my second term being elected. I was first elected in 2015, and I am a third-party candidate here in Hartford, Connecticut. So I am with the Working Families Party. Perhaps where you are right now, where you're tuning in, you might also have third-party candidates as well. It just so happens that in Hartford, we do have this interesting, awesome political group that is WFP. But my own trajectory of becoming a politician, I never thought in a million years that I would become a politician. So it's been a really interesting just loop around of going from community organizing, community activism, and then actually saying, yes, I want to formally run for office. So my hometown, my home base has always been Hartford here in Connecticut. And my parents came here when I was a little baby. They came from Puerto Rico, and home has been Hartford. I attended Hartford public school systems all the way from kinder through high school. And my parents growing up, they always really emphasized the importance of education, and they were activists themselves. My father, who initially, when in Puerto Rico, had joined the military and then later on became a school teacher here in Connecticut. My mom worked by taking care of us at home. And their emphasis was education, the importance of education. From a very early age, they knew in participating in all these meetings in our community that more needed to be done to really boost up the education system in Hartford. And so Hartford is a predominantly Black and brown community, Black and brown city. Half of the population is Latino, identifies as Hispanic or Latino. And they would bring us to many, as children, myself and my siblings, to many community meetings. And it was there that they said, you know what? They had an opportunity to enlist us, 3 of us, onto the Chef versus O'Neill case as Chef versus O'Neill plaintiffs. So this later on became a landmark desegregation case to really make sure that our educational system was improved significantly, because not only was it underserved and underfunded, and that was my first glimpse of what activism and organizing was all about. But then again, I was a child. But fast forward, when it really personally hit me, what they had enlisted us for and what we were fighting for was when I was in high school. So around the time of junior year, when it came time for me to start applying to college, my high school, Hartford Public High School, was on the brink of losing its accreditation. And can you imagine someone in their teens who wants to go to college, but is faced with this reality of the unknown, the fact that everything that we've learned in this high school setting, actually the credits might not be worth anything. And so that was really a shock for me. And luckily, thankfully, I was able to go to college. I stayed local here in Hartford. I attended Trinity College. And it was the first time by attending college that I had what I'm calling the out-of-body experience, when for the first time in my life, I was sitting in a classroom and I would look around with students that looked absolutely nothing like me. And quite often I was the only woman of color, and I was the only Latina person in the room. And so that was quite a shock. But I proceeded, I continued steadfast. I ended up graduating from Trinity College, ended up going to Puerto Rico to do my master's degree in environmental science. I wanted to reconnect with my roots. And it was then when I came back to Hartford that I said, you know, I want to do a lot for my community. I want to give back in the ways that my community and my mentors have given to me. And I worked in the nonprofit sector, between doing community organizing for campaigns such as universal health care to environmental justice campaigns. And one summer, the summer of 2014, when I took it upon myself to push the extra mile outside of my regular day job as a community organizer, I took it upon myself and others to organize around the issue of calling for a referendum at the local municipal level, at the city council level, because there was a very high stakes business that they wanted to develop, which would have been, it was a baseball stadium that would have cost over $80 million of taxpayer money. And in that role, me taking it upon myself to do this type of activism, I spent my entire summer doing this, and then several months after that. But we had an opportunity, our group who was calling for this referendum, to have a very important conversation on a very publicized radio station. I woke up that morning, I prepared, I said, you know, I got this, because this is something that I feel very passionate about, and making sure that the world knows and has this information. I arrived, I sat down in that seat. I was the only woman, and I was the only person of color who was sitting down for this interview. There were 3 other people with me to talk about this specific issue. And I was told to leave the room because actually they did not want to interview me. And so at that point, it was a turning point for me to going from activist and organizer to then saying, how dare you say that I don't have a seat at the table? I have a seat at the table. My community has a seat at the table. Everyone else who's sitting here in that particular setting was a man. And so you're saying that our voices don't matter? And so that was a turning point when I realized, after folks had been saying to me, maybe you should run for office. And I would always say no. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna run for office. I'm going to run for city council. And I said yes. And thanks to saying yes to that opportunity, and they say that statistically speaking, women have to be asked 10, 13, 15 times, way more times than men do to run for office. Sometimes we second guess ourselves. Sometimes it could be for a variety of reasons, but let's not stop ourselves short. I am now, as I said, with the Working Families Party here in Hartford at the Hartford Court of Common Council. This is my 2nd term, and I'm going into my 4.5 years. I live here in Hartford, continue to have this base, happily married, and I have a little toddler, a little girl. And so what drives me in the morning is to make a difference for my community where I grew up.
Thank you, Odalise. You're completely correct about being asked 10, 15 times to go and run. Believe me, you're not the only person who's been asked many times. I know for council, when I was first on council, I was probably asked 4 times before I decided to do it. But we have another wonderful panelist, Brianna Carmen. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got involved in being such a wonderful activist to get out the vote.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Brianna Carmen, and it is really exciting to be here this morning/afternoon with you all. I was born in El Paso, Texas, right on the border. So I really feel like, my story begins there, where it seemed like growing up, I followed the path where, go to school, do really well, make sure you get into college, be a good Latina daughter. And it wasn't until, graduating that I really began to review that role, especially as I realized that it didn't fit me. I moved away to college to Austin, Texas, and it was the first time in my life where I felt like I didn't do well. I had always exceeded at school, and it was such a heart-crushing moment to, go. I was bio pre-med, all of my friends were pre-med, and to actually fail in one of my first classes. And I was not a great student. I ended up dropping out of college my sophomore year, heading back to El Paso, Texas, feeling humiliated and trying to figure out, how to put back the pieces. What does success look like? And feeling like it doesn't fit me. And I really credit, that moment and the shattering of my young world to really bringing me onto this path of political organizing and activism. As I slowly began to piece back my life, I enrolled in college at the local university, which, being on the border, had less funding than the state flagship. A lot of my peers were individuals who were first-generation students, people who crossed over the border every day to go to school, individuals who were on the 10th year of getting their degree because they had worked other jobs and were taking care of their families. So it was an incredible experience and really led me to be interested in my community enough to take a local internship with the congressman. So I started my internship in the congressman's office, and at the time had no idea what the world of politics and advocacy were. My parents aren't political donors. I don't think my mom voted until I started working in this space. And it was a whole new world to me that was so shocking to realize that here was this elected official, this representative who wielded so much power to directly impact people's lives for better or for worse. And it was an incredible opportunity to engage on a daily basis with constituents. El Paso is right by a military base, so we have a lot of veterans. They would call me every day and tell me such sad stories of not being able to see a doctor when they were struggling with suicidal ideation, not being able to access healthcare, not being able to afford medication, or just running into other challenges, and realizing that, here is policy that is not working, and I'm working for a congressman who has a direct role in impacting that. So it was such an aha moment where, for me, I think my early years, I tried to follow the path of what was suggested to me as success. I failed at it miserably, and I later on found that, this is what I want to do. I want to be involved in the community, and I want to do something that is meaningful to people and that makes a positive difference in their lives. And so as my internship came to a close, a few mentors came up to me and mentioned that the congressman was seeking a campaign manager for his re-election race back in 2016. And my first thought was, I am 21, I am a senior in college. I failed out of college a year ago, and I am in no way, shape, or form prepared for this. And it took a huge push and a leap of faith in people who are an amazing network all around me for me to even just say yes to that opportunity, to push past my fear of failure and reach out for something that deep down I really wanted, but was afraid to even mention out loud. So it was an amazing experience. The congressman ended up winning his race in 2016. I learned so many things. I went from, being a college senior, trying to figure out how to buy Starbucks, to managing a campaign account worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, preparing Federal Election Commission filings. They're similar to tax filings, and being able to, have a voice, walk into a room as someone who was at times the only woman of color and at times 20 years younger than everyone else, and mention that this is what we're doing, this is the strategy for the campaign. And it was just an amazing moment. And that led the congressman, after he won, to run a historic race in Texas. I stayed on board and really, kept moving forward with my idea of, I want to create a community for everyone, invite folks to the table. So I was in charge of his statewide strategy, 254 counties, figuring out, how do we connect with tribal communities? Where can we do university college forums? Where can we do town halls? How can we just show up at a diner and figure out what people care about in this community and implement that into our statewide plan as we're advocating for a better Texas? So it was amazing to see that, and really something that I bring to my field now as an individual working in the nonprofit sector, where everyone deserves a seat at the table. We should be engaging communities of color because they're traditionally left out of the policy and advocacy spaces when it impacts them the most. So that's what makes me really excited about 2020, realizing that we are the largest minority and ethnic bloc at 32 million individuals, and that our community wields power. So I'm really excited
You have a lot of fans. We have you. The chat is going on blast here. There's so many people who are sharing the same stories, saying that you're an inspiration, that they've gone through similar situations, and to remake yourself, take a step back at a very young age and realize that what's happening is not working out, and still say, I'm going to give it another try in a different manner is very, it's very impressive. I gotta say, most young people, they stay on a path no matter how frustrating it is, thinking that's the way to be successful, not realizing maybe there's another path there for you. So to kick us off with that inspirational segment of Brianna's story, I do want to mention and acknowledge Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, and may she rest in peace. All of the amazing work that she's brought to the table, all of her decisions that have definitely impacted women and allowed a lot of people many freedoms. A quote that I looked up at online here for Ruth Bader to kick us off. She said, "Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others. In life, things that you regard as an impediment turn out to be great in good fortune." And as many of us as organizers, I know that sometimes when you have an organizing campaign, you have those challenges. You don't know where the path is going in that organizing campaign. And then eventually you realize that the challenges work to your advantage. And I feel like we have to emulate those words from the justice. We have to make sure that we take all the difficult situations, especially now with the current leadership and our opposition of certain legislations that are being thrusted upon us, and take those negatives and make it into a positive. So to start us off in our first topic of conversation, the importance of the vote. So we are here, Latinas, all trying to make a difference and make sure that we persuade and urge our family members the same way that Brianna managed to get her parents to vote. Very impressive. And other family members and friends to go and vote. But I'm sure, like me, you all come across people who say, it doesn't matter. They're all the same. Or, you know, I'm too busy. I have a job, I have kids. That is the last thing on my mind. So let's have a conversation about the importance of the vote, and take yourselves off mute. Let's all chime in and really attack this head on. How are we gonna make the voting process more enthusiastic? How are we gonna engage voters to actually see the importance of the vote? So any feedback here?
So I'm happy to jump in. I think that the first thing is that, you know, we hear so many things about our community. I've seen folks talking about that in the chat. We have to define our own story. And here's the thing. We know that when Latinos, Latinas are registered, we vote. In presidential elections, 8 out of 10 Latinos who are registered vote, right? That's more than 80%. And so what we have is the registration gap. And guess what? There's almost no investment in voter registration. Our secretaries of states are not measured in terms of their performance by how many folks who are eligible they're actually helping register. Like nobody's performance measure includes that. And that's why oftentimes it's left to community organizations like Voto Latino, like Unidos US and others to try to close that gap. So the good news is that in presidentials, when we are registered, we vote. The other thing is,
let me just interrupt you right there, but I feel like that's the key, that when they're registered to vote, when we are registered to vote as a population in presidential elections, we vote in presidential elections. But unfortunately, we forget about everything else. State rep, municipal elections, probate, all of these, the DA, all of these other elections that, believe me, if my Latinos here in Connecticut were out there, you know, hitting it hard, I would be the next lieutenant governor. And politics is personal. So how do we motivate those people?
So the one thing that is important too is that we don't kind of join in blaming our community or just making people feel bad about themselves, right? So there's not enough investment in voter registration. We're joining hands to try to close that gap, and our communities are self-organizing. Do we need more information? Absolutely. To your point, Eva, I mean, we just saw in the thread how many of you were saying that you're a first-time college student in your family, and think about all the things you didn't know that you had to figure out. We have so many people in our community who are first-time voters, or maybe the first voter in their family. So there's a lot of things that we also have to navigate, or information that we should share. In this particular moment, I think that there are 3 key things as we discuss the many factors shaping what issues are the moving issues and what barriers are we facing. If we can keep going back to, there's 3 things we can do. September, make sure you are registered, and everybody you know who's eligible is registered, right? You can go to adelanteunidos.com if you cannot leave your house and you need a way to connect to that. And by the way, also complete the census, which the deadline is at the end of this month. So that's September. Get ready, get registered. October, get set. Learn about your voting options. You can, if you have the option to vote by mail, to vote early, to vote on election day, make a plan and help folks in your friends and family circle do it. And of course, if you're voting by mail or early voting, get it done in October. And then November 3rd, right? Our number 3 for November is, if you're voting on election day, give yourself time. bring a mask, bring a pen, and then all of us being vigilant and patient on November 3rd, because election results will take a while.
Clarice, I definitely agree with you. As someone who has done a lot of canvassing and knocking on many doors, talking to so many people in our community, and asking them, are you registered to vote? And oftentimes, you know, at first I thought it was shocking when I first got into this, and I'm like, oh my God, how can you not be registered? But the more that I do this, the more that you are absolutely right. There isn't really a focus for voter registration efforts throughout the year, not just on presidential elections, not just when people are running for office. It has to happen from A to Z. It has to happen in our high schools, in our colleges, and it just can't be when we're, you know, when we're now getting ready to vote on November 3rd. So I am absolutely with you on that point. I also think, though, that there is sometimes so much information that people don't know where to go. And in terms of like who, not just what dates do they have to vote, but who's out there, who's running, whether it's, you know, for their own local races or at the state level. And of course, this presidential election is so critical. And so that information is important for people to research just as much.
As a councilwoman, do you feel like you have an opportunity to clarify where people can go? Or Clarissa, with your organization, Unidos US, I just posted it on the chat, by the way. Everyone tuning in or watching this, this video later on, don't forget to check the chat information. It has the links and different references to the information that we're talking about to go out and vote. So where do you find this information? How do you get the word out there?
And to jump in here, Ava,
Yep.
So Voto Latino, we have an election center. It goes live on Saturday. So votolatino.org/election center. And it's a way for people to get a sample ballot, see what elections there are. I think in the Latinx community, a challenge and a nuance is this lack of education. Organizations and different groups, whether nationally or locally, either do not invest or do not have the funds to invest to educate our communities. So the onus is really on us to educate ourselves and others. So I would recommend that. I'm sure Clarissa knows of some resources as well at Unidos. That's one nuance, and, you know, really setting the background here. I think when I kind of view voter registration and turnout, for me, it's almost a vicious cycle where there's a lack of community investment, because usually campaigns go for low-hanging fruit. They're strapped by cash and they don't, in their mind, want to spend money on unreliable voters. And we fall in the category of unreliable voters because we're new. Our demographic is a lot younger than other demographics. We're not, you know, the 70-year-olds who are reliable voters out in Georgia. And, you know, for us, it's an unsafe bet. And also, you know, some campaigns, we tend to lean more to the left, depending on what age bracket you look at. So those are a few reasons why we're not seeing the community investment. And that just tends to create the cycle year after year where people feel left out. It's not apathy, it's uninterest, because candidates aren't shaping platforms that are activating policy around people because they're not actively courting our votes. So that's a huge shift this year, where we are going to be this huge block that means the deciding factor in states like Texas, Arizona, Florida, as well as other states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. So candidates should be crafting a platform to woo us as voters, and we should be seeing this investment. So it's really unfortunate that we didn't see that in voter registration, and I'm hoping we'll see it for voter turnout.
Here's one thing though that as folks, you know, so I think all of our organizations push campaigns, candidates, and hold their feet to the fire because they are not meaningfully reaching out to our community. I mean, many of you might have seen a slew of stories in the last month about Latinos are not being outreached to by Democrats or Republicans. There's not enough going that. The surprising thing is not that they are not being reached out to, even in states like Florida and Arizona, when Latinos are gonna be decisive in those battlegrounds. The surprising thing is that that is exactly what they've done in every election cycle, and that they're still doing it. But the thing that gives me hope is that as I mentioned, the reason why Arizona is a battleground state and Latinos are a defining influence there is because the community has been organizing for the last 10 years. There's groups coming together to do that. And the other thing we know is that while our folks, our gente, is skeptical about politicians, like many of us are, one powerful thing in motivating our community to vote is actually la comunidad. We've asked people, like in previous elections, were they more motivated to vote because of the candidate they supported or to take a stand and support the community? And in some elections, the majority of Latinos have said that it was for community. And that, whether campaigns reach out or not, that es algo que traemos en el corazón, que lo llevamos en la mente, y nos puede seguir llevando a las urnas, pase lo que pase, resulte lo que resulte, y seguir creciendo nuestra voz.
I find it so strange that, and you're all the feedback I agree with 100%. And I still feel like despite all the campaigns, I've probably worked on 50 campaigns professionally in my career. And still I'm up against what you probably see is that person saying it just doesn't matter. So what are some tips that we can give those unconvinced voters, those voters who are just disconnected and apathetic?
I would say, and I like what Clarissa said earlier, which is it's not necessarily apathy. They're just undecided. They have to be convinced. They have to be convinced. And oftentimes, what issues does that particular candidate stand for that impact you directly, your life, your community, tu mamá, tu hermano, tu abuelo, toda tu familia? How does that impact you? Because it does. Those issues really do. Policy does play out in the real world. And so I think that as someone, for me personally, specifically as a third party elected official with the Working Families Party, as someone who, when I was thinking about running for office, I said, I'm not going to run, and this is, again, me personally, being in Hartford, Connecticut, I said, I'm not going to run as a Democrat because it's very hard for me to start running as a Democrat when I feel that within our specific group and our DTC, they don't necessarily, where I live, they don't necessarily reach out to younger candidates like me. And so I've had these conversations in my own head saying, well, where do I fit as a voter, as someone who cares about so many issues that are impacting my community? And I made the personal choice of running as Working Families Party. Not everybody is obviously registered as Working Families Party in Hartford because we're a very small party. But I definitely respect all those folks out there who have different party affiliations, who are in many cases in Connecticut, especially the younger generations, the Generation Z or millennials or whatever name you want to call, that are registered as unaffiliated. Because in Connecticut and many other states, we do have a lot of folks who are registered as unaffiliated. They say, I don't want to be a Republican and I don't want to be a Democrat, and I don't know where I stand. And so
I was having, well, just to interrupt really quickly, because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine just last night, and her mother said, I really want to vote this year, but it seems that neither candidate really stands for Latino values. And what I was trying to dig deeper, and she said, well, you know, Latinos have this conservative sense where a lot of our family members still have strong feelings towards the body and abortion and issues that are controversial, but still we're meeting our counterparts, our other Latinos who are there fighting for Black Lives Matters, for people of color, for more liberal issues. So how do you bring that into the mix, that grassroots organizing to motivate?
I would say unaffiliated voters, you are not forgotten. I would say also voters who identify as third party. I mentioned WFP, but it could be any party. It could be the Green Party, throw whatever other names out there. You are also not forgotten. This is a critical moment in our nation, in our country. And our democracy depends on our vote. That's literally how important this election is. And we need your support. For me, as someone, again, third party, saying, look, I am going to be voting as if my life depended on it, because my life does. My community depends on this vote. We need to go out and vote because we need to have a peaceful transition of power. We need to go out and vote because we need to make sure that Social Security is still available when we're ready to retire. We need to go out and vote because we have to combat climate change now, not tomorrow. We have to go out and vote. We need to exercise our right to vote to make sure that we have peace in our streets. Right now, when we're looking at what's happening in Kentucky, and you have right-wing militia that is taking up the streets with arms, and meanwhile in the White House, all we see are applauds. Our democracy depends on our vote right now, our life, our livelihood, and our economic future as an entire country depends on it.
So going into grassroots organizing some more and digging a little deeper, I checked out votolatino.org. Again, it's on the chat, and adelanteunidos.com, and that's also on the chat. And I see that you embrace grassroots organizing, that idea of connecting one person with another person, getting more involved. Can you tell us a little bit more about your organizations and how to take that enthusiasm that Woodley just put in about the importance of the vote into grassroots organizing?
Sure. So, at Voto Latino, I think all this fire that Wildalis is sharing is so amazing because it's exactly what, I, as a person managing and curating this program, want individuals to feel in their community where they have the ability to get the information they need and engage others and, bring everyone to the table, as we said earlier. And so the idea of Voto Latino is to create this decentralized organizing network where really, given COVID-19, since we can't do anything in person, we moved everything online. And so you're able to send text messages from the comfort of your sofa or wherever you have Wi-Fi to people to remind them to register to vote, to remind them to take the census, to walk them through requesting a ballot, remind them to mail back that ballot, and also get them information about, the polls, since we know different states have had polling closures. There might not be enough poll workers. There might be shortened hours. So making sure, again, that information is in this community's hands. So that way we're removing every barrier to voting and civic engagement that we can.
Yeah, I agree with that. We do in this particular space, part of what we do is, so we work with other community organizations, service providers. So like if there's a community health clinic, explore ways in which they can help the people they serve register to vote, for example. We run the largest Latino voter registration operation in Florida. And with the pandemic, we had to go from in-person to virtual. And I tell you, all of our canvassers are from the community, señoras, muchachas, the majority Spanish dominant. And we all shifted to virtual, and they're talking to voters every day. So really part of it is creating easy access to trusted information and creating on-ramps that people, depending what they prefer, right? If they want to do online registration or in person or virtual or by text, creating the different tools that then different organizations, chiquitas, grandes, medianas, individuals can use. But one important thing is that, as we know, the Latino community is a diverse community. But even with that, there is a number of issues on which there is great affinity, whether we are first generation American like me, or people who were here since before the country got founded. And Latinos really want to see that hope and that hard work reflected. We also hear from Latinas, and you probably have heard this, many of our voters feel like, I don't want to make the wrong decision. I don't know everything. Like, you need a PhD to vote. And we need to make sure that people don't feel intimidated by that. They have a PhD in what their family and what they're going through, and that qualifies them as a voter. And then we can provide information on how they can look at their their candidates so they can find the one that aligns best with them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about misinformation and disinformation. So we have a group of people who are misinformed and just are not fully aware of what the voter registration rules are. But then we have some news outlets, social media, that unfortunately, because so much information is being put out there, they might be disinforming. We have social media posts that might tell you, you don't have the ability to vote from home. You have to have, like you said, a PhD to go and vote. So we have to be very careful to be in tune with what the rules are. Each state has different voter registration rules. I wish I can tell you right now, you know, the last day to go and register for absentee ballots is X date, but I don't want to do that because, again, each state has their different rules of how you do it.
What I would add is to make sure that you connect with the resources that have already been shared at the national level, which really impact us at the state and federal and the local level. So do that first. And then also as an added bonus is connect with your Secretary of State's office, because all of that information is updated on that website. So for instance, and I know we have people from all over the US that are tuning in, but for example, for those who are tuning in from Connecticut, if you go to the www.ct.gov website and you scroll midway through, right in the middle of that page, for instance, there's information on elections and voting, and that will bring you straight to the Secretary of State's website. Or you could just Google, in a Google search, type in Secretary of State for your specific state, and you will see all of the regulations, because every state is a little different. And you should do that 1, 2, 3 step that Clarissa mentioned earlier for you to be on track. Am I registered to vote? Did I just move my address? Did I move from one town to another, or did I move from one state to another? What are the rules in the state? Make sure that if your state does allow for absentee ballot, that you are able to request the application form prior to you being able to then send out the ballot. In states like Connecticut, for instance, every single person who is registered to vote in the state of Connecticut is receiving an absentee ballot application form. I literally just filled mine out with my husband and we sent it in. And so just make sure you know what those specific rules are for your state.
I just added in onto the chat the vote.org website that has a list of every state and the voter registration rules. I also added in, for those who are in Connecticut, the voter registration website for Connecticut. And of course, don't forget adelanteunidos.com and votolatino.org, also on the chat. Also great resources to figure out how to register to vote, how to get involved. And like Woldley said, the absentee ballot, you have to make a request to make sure that you get the form. It's not like automatically everyone has the ability to go and vote from home if you're not even registered. So important.
And in Connecticut, for instance, you can request that form online if you have not received it.
The other thing we're gonna do is, for all the folks that we are registering this cycle and who we register in previous cycles, but it's still kind of infrequent voters. So we're gonna make sure that they receive a couple calls from us, a text with reminders about deadlines for their states, but also that each one of them gets a piece of mail. I don't know about you, but like when I get a piece of mail I like, and I still put it on the fridge. So we're gonna make sure that people get a piece of mail en inglés y en español que has the information if their state has early voting days, what those days are, if it has vote by mail options, what that, you know, how to go about it. And obviously the information about the polls hours for election day, and a bilingual voter hotline. So I put it in the chat, but our sister Naleo has operated for like 2 decades now, a bilingual hotline, 1-888-VE-VOTA. And that, you know, I know many of us like to speak to a real person. That's the way to go.
Clarissa, can you add that in the chat? I don't want to misspell it.
Yep, I'll do it, and I'll put in the numbers too.
Perfect.
And
So
I did want to add, so that whole misinformation, there's a lot, and you already mentioned this, Eva, but on social media, there is a lot of misinformation, sometimes even pop-up ads that show up and you're like, is this real? Is this not real? And so I would caution folks from getting their information on social media in that form. And that's one thing that I would throw out there. And then the other thing, as someone who is, third party and thinking about just the bigger picture here, I do want to note this. And again, this is why it's so critical to get out. And we've said it already, it's a very important election. But on September 23rd, yesterday, September 23rd, this was stated at a press conference. If you get rid of the ballots, then you'll have a peaceful transition. That was stated, that was the direct quote from President Trump. And so when we're talking about the bigger picture of misinformation, and these are, and I'm just saying this, me as Wildelis Bermudez, councilwoman from Hartford, Connecticut, I'm just throwing it out there for the record, and it's a direct quote of what was stated yesterday, September 23rd. And so we have to really do our research on the issues that really impact us and impact our communities, and we have to get out there.
Well, that brings us, that's a good pivot to just wrapping this up and going into the call of action and what we're asking everyone online watching this. Hopefully you're watching this before November 3rd. That is the election day. That's general information. Of course, rules are different in every state, but November 3rd is the election day. What would you say, if you can sum it up, inspirational words of why it's so important, why Latinos matter in this election to everyone watching us today? Wildes, you want to kick us off?
We have to exercise our right to vote because our lives really and truly depend on it. We are voting for what we want to see, the changes that we want to see, for everything that we are working towards and everything that we hope for in our community. During this pandemic, communities of color, Black and brown communities, have been hit the hardest in terms of numbers, the COVID numbers, coronavirus numbers, and as well as the shortfalls that have occurred, not having enough funding and our small businesses being impacted. And so all that creates what some people are calling the perfect storm. Now more than ever before, we have to go out as Latinos, as Hispanics, and exercise our power to vote.
Brianna, you want to chime in here? Inspirational words?
Sure. So to add on to that, and really just to sum it up, communities of color have suffered for decades. Yes, we have had our great successes and there have been great leaders and giants and titans. The challenge is we haven't seen widespread equality and equity for our communities. And we know that we suffer economically, we suffer racially, we suffer many injustices, and voting is a key factor in the solution. So I'm asking you to be part of that solution, to engage your family, people who you care deeply about, and bring everyone together, because it's one thing to, sit back and be frustrated, but to realize that more people sat out of the 2016 election than voted in a presidential year. This is your time if you really want to make a difference and have your voice heard.
And Clarissa.
I just say, our community is facing so many challenges, and I'm always inspired that no matter what comes at us, the resilience, the hope, and the optimism. And I know there's so many things on the to-do list right now that this sounds like just one more, but hopefully all the different ways we've collaborated to try to make it easier and accessible for people to take this step helps you take the step. But then the motivation is about giving voice to the aspirations and the contributions of our families and of our community. Latinos, Latinas are builders of this nation. We are the engine, part of the economic engine. And guess what? As the country has to recover and rebuild from the pandemic, Latinos and Latinas are going to be in the front lines. We are essential workers. Let's make sure we are essential voters too.
On that note, we're looking at you who are watching us. The next step starts today. So check out those websites, adelanteunidos.com, votolatino.org, vote.org. They're nonprofit organizations who are here trying to inform you. And we're not here to make the decision for you. It's your time to make that decision for your family and for your future. So with that, Marilyn, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for having us. Amazing panelists, Clarissa, Councilwoman Walters Bermudez, Brianna, Carmen. Thank you for the inspirational words.
And to all of you, I have to tell you, it's been like a roller coaster for me listening to this conversation. I went through so many emotions that were sadness, that were fear, and then pride and hope that you shared the reality of the situation and the criticalness of the state that we find ourselves in. The information that you have shared with everyone today, I hope it inspires and motivates our listeners to take action today. 3 things: census, deadline, end of month. You can't vote if you don't register. So someone
we put
said
it
to
on
me,
there. We put the census link and we forgot the actual date. So yes.
Someone said, yes, the end of this month. Someone said to me, oh, I went to vote and I couldn't. And I'm like, did you register? And they didn't. So, I mean, there's so much education that still needs to happen in our community. So if there's nothing else you remember is register, and then November 3rd, and vote your conscience so that we can bring our country back together. I want to thank, as I was putting this panel together, I can't imagine having a better voice of Latinas. The comments that have come in, we'd want to share with everyone. So thank you so much. I hope that you do stay on to listen to the next segment, because I believe that that could bring us all into a place of hope also, and healing, because we need to do a lot of that, so that the next speakers are going to, bring their own experience and how they approach being able to center ourselves and to be able to keep the strength and energy that we need to keep going, especially in the next, how many days left?
40.
40?
40.
Ay,
40.
Dios mío, tengo miedo. Okay, thank you all very much. And I hope you join us for the next segment. That was so powerful. I hope that many of you are walking away with a sense of wanting to take action. That call to action is extremely important, and not just yourselves, but also to grab somebody else and make sure that they understand what's happening and be involved in your community to get others to go out there, register, and vote. So with that, we'd like to leave you with a wonderful gift. I have had the honor and pleasure of meeting many celebrities over the course of the last 17 years as I've created this Latinas in Power platform. And one of the things that I always try to do is to bring a variety of voices to the table, Latina voices to the table. Sometimes it's in business, and sometimes are multimillionaire Latinas, and sometimes they are celebrities. And what I have found, and I feel like such a wonderful gift has been given to me, is that the Latina celebrities that have come to speak at Latinas in the past years have become friends of Latinas in Power, and have always said to me, what can I do to help you move this agenda forward so that we could bring Latina voices to a place where we're all connected and that we could really make things happen. So today, I'm just thrilled to present to you 2 Latina celebrities that are here to share their perspective and to share their journey on how they approach the importance of self-care, the importance of faith, and then, of course, the importance of self-healing, because we all need that. And first up is Andrea Navedo, who was one of our speakers I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, but you may know her. Her role is her role in Sayamara de Villanueva in Jane the Virgin. She's won supporting actress awards from Imagen, Westfield International Film Festival, Woman in Film. She's done many different, she has a lot of different credits, but I don't want to take any more time there and just want to bring her to the stage, the virtual stage, and let her share a little bit about how she's approaching life these days. Welcome, Andrea Navedo.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, Marilyn. When you invited me to give the keynote speech, I think it was about 4 years ago, it was my first keynote, and I was so nervous. Oh my goodness. And I had all these months to prepare, and for all those months, it was like this huge weight on my mind, and I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to pull this off?
You killed it. You killed it.
Thank you. You know what? For me, it was a real honor to have the opportunity to use my platform to speak to other Latinas. It's really important to me because growing up in the United States, growing up in New York City, in the Bronx, I didn't really have many opportunities on screen to see myself being reflected back, and to see myself being reflected back in a positive light. So when I decided to become an actress, there was a part of me that felt like, oh, it's such a selfish, self-aggrandizing type of ego boosting career, like so self-focused. And it wasn't until I got the opportunity to be on Jane the Virgin that I really realized what a ministry acting is. It's an opportunity to be of service. And I really needed a show like Jane the Virgin. And the fact that I got the opportunity to be on it, and the fact that I persevered in my career and didn't give up, and because there were many times that I wanted to give up, the fact that I persevered and kept going, then I finally hit Jane the Virgin and these 3 beautiful Latina characters who I felt really represented my family and so many other families, whether they were Latino or not, was so healing to me.
Mm-hmm. Andrea, you said something on the stage 4 years ago that I will never forget. And it was the moment you're describing right now. And you slammed your foot on the stage and you said, bam, I slayed the dragon. And I still use that. I'm like, I love that. You had such a good way of explaining like what that felt like when you got to that point.
Yes, well, I'm glad that you're bringing up Slay the Dragon, because I am still slaying dragons as we speak. I'm in the middle of slaying a major dragon that I wanted to share with people. I was like debating on whether or not I was going to share it because it's pretty personal.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's always good to use your own stories to really kind of demonstrate concepts. And so anyway, I want to share with the ladies, share with you all that I'm in the process of getting divorced. And a lot of celebrities won't share things like that until after the fact, until it's all done. But I really loved using my platform as an opportunity to connect with fans, viewers, whoever's watching me, to equalize us. Because I think, sometimes celebrities get put on a pedestal and people, idolize and all that. And I love it. It's all wonderful. Love to be idolized. It's great. I mean, I love the fans, but I want to kind of like even the playing field, or even how we view each other, because we're all the same. We're all struggling with so many difficult things. We're all slaying our own dragons.
Mm.
So, for me, like, I've been married for 23 years. Staying married was really important to me, which is one of the reasons why I've been married for so long. because, you know, growing up, I grew up in a single family, you know, my mother's a single mom, right? So I identify very much with Xiomara and Alba and the whole thing. But I grew up that way, and I don't know, for some reason, I guess maybe in media or things, I always felt like, you know, we should grow up in a, you know, 2-parent home, like that's the healthy way, and all of these things. And I stayed in a marriage that was not healthy for me. It was not good for me, but I learned so much from it. And I've been contemplating divorce for so many years, and I was so fearful to actually do it. I thought that I was going to really hurt my children, that it was going to really damage them. I thought that I wouldn't be able to take care of myself. I thought that I would feel so lonely. I thought I would feel so isolated.
And
I'm not.
And you're not. You know, I have to say, I watch you on your Instagram channel. By the way, if you're not following Andrea Navedo on her Instagram, please do, because she always has some wonderful experiences to share with the rest of us. And what I love about your experiences that you share with us on Instagram is you're so raw. I mean, you go out there without makeup sometimes, and you say how you're feeling that day, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And that makes us feel like oh, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, you're not the only one, right? And that's kind of like how I view my platform is like, I want to take people off the hook. You know, we always like trying to live up to some ideal based on what we see in media, and it's fucking bullshit. I'm sorry, but it's BS. And, you know, I love to be glamorous and do that whole thing, but you know what's more important to me at the end of the day, and this is my main message today, I want to make sure, because I know we're going to run out of time, is that we need to take care of ourselves. As women and as Latinas, we need to take care of ourselves. And my mission is to heal myself. Like, that is my ultimate goal, because everyone has had some sort of childhood trauma, and it affects us for the rest of our lives until we face it, until we deal with it, until we slay those dragons, all those messages that we received subliminally, that we weren't good enough, that we weren't lovable, that we weren't smart, that we weren't whatever it is, right? And everyone walks around with this chatter in their heads, and most of it is very negative. So I view, like, I love that we were talking about voting and getting the vote out, and I love that we have all these amazingly educated and intelligent Latina women out there fighting the good fight. I want to come at it from a different angle and say that all of us, I believe we need to take responsibility for our own spiritual health, our mental health, our emotional health. Because if we don't do that, we're going to be trying to do this fight, trying to get ahead as people, but we're self-sabotaging subconsciously if we aren't taking care of ourselves, if we aren't in therapy, if we aren't journaling, if we aren't exercising, if we aren't eating healthy, trying to just like work on ourselves spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. I think that we serve the world when we take care of ourselves. We put our best foot forward, and we also are amazing models for our children. Mm-hmm. And that is how we're, you know, one of the great ways to make an impact in society.
So let me ask you something, because I have a routine. Self-care is like one of the most important things that I believe all of us need to do more of, because we're always taking care of others, you know, especially as women. It's like, ¿qué necesitan los niños? ¿Qué necesitan los padres? Whatever it is. And so it takes practice to really be able to do it for ourselves. And so I have a routine that I go through every day. How I start my day, I get up very early. I start with meditation. I want to hear from you is, you know, what's your approach? What do you do? And how is it helping you to, especially in the situation that you are right now? I know when I went through my divorce, it was 23 years ago that I had, as you share.
When I was embarking on my marriage journey.
Well, you shared something with me the other day. I think you're going to talk about the husband. What was it? The husband.
Husband.
Soon to be husband. But walk us through, because one of the things that Latinas in Power is known for is to share with others, like those strategies for success, and that the, kind of step by step is what many people need. So talk us through what you do.
Oh, I'm happy to share. A typical day for me looks like getting up early, like you said. I will go and do yoga. I used to meditate, but now I'm doing more yoga and physical therapy because I have like a chronic hip thing that I'm working on. But the yoga, the movement has really, really helped me to get reconnected into my body. It relieves a lot of stress. I feel invigorated as if I had done like a regular exercise at the gym, and it clears my mind, and I have a much better, more positive mindset when I do that. For years, since I've had children, I make a point of carving out the time for myself before I speak to anyone, before I have any input in my brain. I can't function without it. At least an hour to myself. So I'll get up early. I used to get up really early before my children did, because if I didn't take care of myself, I was not a nice mother. My kids are teenagers, so it's not so bad now, but I still get up and I do my yoga and PT, and I also drink a lot of water, and I take my medicine because I have a low thyroid issue and hypertension and all these other things. So there's that. And then one of the other things that I do is I exercise and I journal. Journaling is one of the biggest healing tools that I have discovered besides therapy, which I am in therapy as well, once a week, and even through the pandemic on video. It's been awesome, and it's helped me so much to get through this divorce journey, which has been really, 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 really challenging, because I love my husband. Me,
Yeah, right.
And, it was a hard decision to come to, but I know it was the right one because I feel good.
Yeah.
But what got me through it was the journaling, and and I've been journaling for years. So it also helped me to make the decision to divorce, because I would look back and I would see the pattern, a cycle of behavior, and this like dysfunctional dance that would happen between my husband and I for all those years. And I would see how unhappy I was for so long. I was so unhappy that it was such a wake-up call to go back and read what I had written. I said, I've got to do something different. I can't keep doing this cycle. I need to figure this out. And so through therapy, I've had to confront, I was sexually abused as a child. I've been working on that for years, but it comes up again. It's like there's layers. You got to keep digging and keep working on it. And so it's manifested itself, through, not feeling good enough, not feeling valued, and then staying in a relationship that proves that I'm not valuable, because my partner isn't doing the things that make me feel valued, right? There's no blame or anything. Him and I have come to a place of understanding that, relationships and marriage are just a spiritual journey in disguise.
Everything that you're saying right now is exactly what I went through. And I'm now, like at the height of what I feel, I could be, in terms of, because I'm dedicated to following what comes naturally to me. And, and that brings the happiness that is just unsurmountable. I want to bring our friend in, Lisa Vidal. David, if you can bring in Lisa. And first of all, Andrea, thank you so much for introducing me to your friend Lisa. When I asked you, do you have someone else that you think we could have this conversation with? And you automatically thought about Lisa Vidal because of, how she practices faith. And so when I had that conversation with Lisa on the phone, and Nana, it was like, I've known this woman my whole life. I fell in love with her over the phone. I'm like, and now we have, we've been having this charla back and forth. And Lisa, thank you so much for your authenticity. You and Andrea are the kind of Latina voices out there. You have the stage, you have the platform that we are really proud of. And so welcome to Latinas in Power, and please join this conversation because I know that you have some things to share with us on faith and just where you're at in your life as well. And then we can all three of us come back together to close out our wonderful program. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Marilyn. This is, wow, I have so much to say. I was like, Andrea, I ain't gonna have time to talk. I'm like, oh my God. First of all, I love my Andrea. We are very dear friends. She has a big piece of my heart. I feel like we're sisters, you know, somehow. And I'm like, we're gonna play sisters, girlfriend. We're gonna play sisters. Something. And Ivonne Cole, the beautiful Ivonne Cole, played my mom. I've had some of the greats playing my mom, and that was so inspirational. I'm so proud of you, Ivonne. But then again, I'm not surprised. And
excuse me, Lisa, I just want to say,
yeah?
I think I have the perfect script for you and Andrea to play sisters.
Okay.
Nancy De Los Santos wrote a script about 3 sisters, and it's a kick-ass script. It hasn't been picked up. But as you're talking about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, they would be perfect. Anyway, sidebar.
Fantabulous, because we are looking. But I just want to quickly speak to also like all this. I feel like I'm going to blow up because I'm filled with so much pride for our Latina women, for all those amazing, beautiful women on that panel, that beautiful young lady. My God, we are just incredible. I'm just going to say that. We are incredible. We can make a difference. We are in every grain and granule of this country, of the world. You know, we are powerful, and I'm just inspired. I'm inspired by what you're doing, Marilyn, by what all these women are doing, by everyone who's watching this panel, who's empowering others, educating each other. And I just want to speak to, you know, I so agree with what Andrea said about this industry and being an actress. And for me, I've been an actress for 41 years. I started as a kid. And for me, it started out because I wanted to make believe I was somewhere else. I grew up in the Bronx, Spanish Harlem, in tough neighborhoods. There was a lot of dysfunction, violence, alcoholism, you know, drug use. There was a lot of stuff, challenging things that I was exposed to. And, you know, I'd disappear in television for like hours. My aunt would take us to the movies. We'd go from one movie to the other, you know, it was like amazing, you know, for like $5. And it was my way of kind of pretending I was living another life. And I remember that's how it started for me. And then I think it was Funny Girl. I saw the movie Funny Girl and I was inspired. I was like, I want to sing, I want to dance. I went, oh my God. And then it became this thing where it was like, I knew being able to emote emotion and move someone, change someone's thinking by telling someone's story was very powerful to me. And so it became the only thing I saw myself doing. And that's what I did. But in the same breath, I come from strong women, working women who were mothers, doing it all. And I was like, I could do this. I can have 3 kids. I can get married. I was like, I got this. All the while I was like, oh my God. But I got through that shit. And I have 3 children. I'm married. I'm with my husband for 35 years. Now, let me just speak to this really quickly, and then I'll go into my other thing. Marriage is not easy. People ask me all the time, how do you like stay married? Let me tell you something. It's consistent work. And many times, like Andrea says, I want it out. My husband wanted out. Like, you know, I'm tired of your ass. You know, we went through all that. Look, and we still, you know, when you have children, when you have longevity, when you meet so young, you grow up together. Sometimes you grow apart. Sometimes you work really hard to stay together. It's not easy. It is a journey. And I could talk about that for days, but we're still here. And I wanted to say that part of my journey and faith and healing, because I've been through breast cancer, I've been through really troubling situations with my, you know, children and my husband. And I have to say that what I learned the most is what God has taught me, what my spirituality has taught me, is that I must lead with faith and not fear, because life is scary. Situations are scary. The unknown is scary. You know, the condition of our country, the leadership. And I, like Andrea, spend a lot of time in the morning. I pray, I have my meditation, I have my quiet time, because I need to gear up for the day. And I believe in manifestation, and I believe that what we create in our mind has the possibility of coming true. So me, if you follow me, if you know anything about me, I work hard to be positive, because there's so much negative. And I was like, I got to be positive, because if I dwell on the negative, I'm going down. And who can I inspire? How can I inspire my children? How can I inspire my beautiful Latina daughter? You know, I need to find the strength, and my faith is my strength, and my believing and pushing forward. And I fight for my Latino people. I think we are incredible. I think I'll speak just to Latina women right here, saying that what we do is amazing, and we are intelligent, and we are powerful, and we are empowering. The way we take care of our families, we take care of others unselfishly we serve. Like Andrea was saying, you know, even in my industry, it is absolutely, for me, an industry of service. I try to service. I try to fight against the brainwashing of the stereotype that Hollywood has perpetuated. I fight it. I'll never forget, at a very young age, I was only getting maids and prostitutes and drug dealer girlfriends, and I had to come to a place where I was like, do I want to do this anymore? What am I doing? Like, I don't want to do this. This is not who we are. This is not what I come from. I come from amazing, powerful women, educated, and some of them, you know what? Maybe they didn't go to college, but man, they had businesses, they were working, they were fierce. And all I'm getting these parts. And it's just like, and not speaking down to, a maid profession. I'm not saying that, but it was the only stereotype. And it was always kind of sort of displayed in a negative light. You know, it was like not, it just.
So how did you move away from that? How did you move?
So what I did was that I came to a point where I said to my agent, she had called me, and she was like, she was like, hey, we got another, this role, and she's a prostitute. And I said, you know what, let me stop you right. I said, you know what, I'm not interested in that. I said, if you can't get me roles that are the doctors, the lawyers, the somebody in charge that are more positive, I said, I don't want to do this. So you need to sell me that way. And it was a risk, because back then there wasn't a lot. But that's the only way I saw myself continuing to do what I was going to do. And guess what? It worked. It worked. She actually started saying, hey, how about Lisa Vidal? How about a Latina? How about this? And I'm born and raised in New York City, although I'm of Puerto Rican descent. And
is that how you got being Mary Jane?
Is that what?
Mary Jane, being Mary Jane.
Being Mary Jane was written for a white woman. Yeah. And thankfully, Mara Braca Keel knew my work, and she was like, yeah, I want to sit and talk to Lisa Vidal about this. And we sat for 3 hours, and we talked about Cara and who Cara was. And I said, listen, this is who I want Cara to be. And she was so amazing. She said, I need you to teach me how to write for a Latina. And I was like, you got it. We're a team. And I really wanted to show the diverse parts of us as working women, as mothers, as wives, as people, women in charge, women who are up against, those powers that try to kind of quash us. And I wanted to speak to the truth of that it's not always easy. It's not always glamorous. And you have to fight, and you have to keep pounding away at that wall, because it's hard to knock down. But until we continue to fight and make even louder noise, we will continue to be ignored. And that is the problem. I do believe that the brainwashing helps us kind of perpetuate our own, we're ignored. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we vote. They don't care. you know, we're ignored. We're not even at the Emmys. They don't, our shows get canceled. My show was just canceled. All Latino cast on ABC. My sister's show was just canceled on ABC. You know, Latina lead, good shows. But until we start fighting on that front, you know, and taking our communities like individually and powerfully and just helping them understand how powerful they truly are, our voices, and we work together. It is not Dominican, Mexican, Colombian. No. We are Latinos, you know. So that voice has to be loud. And so Andrea and I, in our little world of Hollywood, we, and Ivonne, all of us, Eva Longoria, all of us, so many of us in our little group, we're trying to make some noise. We're trying to make some noise. And by the way, you guys follow at She Se Puede, because there's a lot of voter information there. That's also been started by America Ferrara, Gina Rodriguez.
Oh, right. And that's what I love, you know, like you were sharing that with me about the effort that is taking place with Latina celebrities and creating these groups so that we can mobilize our communities. I just love both of you that are so active out there making this happen. You know, there's a sense of powerlessness, there's a sense of hopelessness that's happening in our society today. So, you know, in closing, both of you have just shared this wonderful, warm, loving energy with our audience. Let's take, as we take this home, as we wrap this up, let's take a minute for each of you to just share that message of hope that you que podemos compartir con nuestras Latinas. We'll start with you, Lisa.
The message of hope for me, again, comes with faith and not fear. Honestly, it just comes down to that. Us being leaders in our communities, in our homes, with each other, us being women who empower other women, not tear down other women, us recognizing our differences and celebrating them and honoring each other and awarding each other the way you're doing, Marilyn, which is just incredible, and educating one another, right? And I'm so grateful to have been introduced to these amazing women here. And Andrea and I, you know, we feel blessed. I feel blessed. We feel blessed for the hope of our community, for the hope of change that we can create and encourage others to create and you know, empower our voices, because that's how we're going to change. And I'm excited about the change. I don't want to look ahead and see darkness. I want to see light.
I love that. And so, Lisa, let's make sure that everyone knows how to follow you. I just started following you a little while ago, and your handle on Instagram is?
My handle on Instagram is @TheRealLisaVidal, and on Twitter it's @TheLisaVidal, and on Facebook it's just Lisa Vidal.
Well, you know, and I'm glad I'm sharing this, because we wouldn't have, I looked for you under Lisa Vidal and there was like all these Lisa Vidal. So I knew that it was different.
I said I'm the real one.
The real
I'm
Lisa
the real
Vidal.
Lisa Vidal. I'm just kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke that I always say.
And Andrea, what would you like to share with us in closing in terms of your message to our beautiful Latinas out there?
Sure. Well, I would like to share that all of us have power, more power than we think we do. And that power is in our actions, the actions we take every day, the actions we take towards ourselves. Are we putting ourselves first? Are we taking care of ourselves? Because if we don't, we can't be there for others. What kind of actions are we taking in the world? Are we putting our best foot forward? It really does make a ripple effect, a big impact. And I believe that we have so much to offer as Latinas. I mean, across the board, anywhere from we are basically the United Nations of a race of people. So that right off the bat is amazing. And we bring so much flavor and vibrancy and ingenuity and creativity and intelligence to the table. I really believe in our people, and especially our Latina women. And you know, we are so strong because I was raised by women, so I know for a fact that that is what it is.
We, you know, and I thought you were going to say, and we're so lucky, because I really do feel lucky. I feel lucky that we have been able to make these kind of connections with each other. You know, I get so many messages about the work that I'm doing, but also when I hear everyone else's journey, it gives me that shot in the arm to keep going. And so listening to the both of you, my new nueva hermanas, thank you so much for taking the time really to be with us today. We really appreciate that this is coming from your heart. So thank you so much. And with that, we are at the end of, oh, Andrea, you're, wait, hold on one second. Andrea's
handle.
Instagram handle is?
All of it is Andrea Navedo or Andrea Navedo.
Andrea Navedo. And she's got about almost 1 million. You're getting to 1 million followers. I love your videos out there. So, and to the rest of you, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to do a special thank you to our sponsors, especially our presenting sponsors, Mass Mutual, Eversource, and Chet. We will have this video on YouTube. I saw that a lot of people were subscribing already. So all you need to do is just put Latinas in Power into the YouTube. We're hoping to get at least 100 subscribers today so that we can have our own URL. And of course, we hope to have our live symposium on June 3rd of 2021, you know, depending on what happens with the pandemic and the world events. But thank you so much for joining us today, and enjoy the salsa music brought to you by the Latin Heartbeat Orchestra.
Con el tiempo